Thank you, Vice Chair Maloney, and I join you in thanking our witnesses for coming today and thanking those, some of whom are witnesses and some of whom are in the audience, who have endured firsthand the grieving loss associated with gun violence. Over the past few weeks, Americans have watched in horror again and again as our fellow beings, young and old, have been murdered in high-profile mass shootings on American soil. As lawmakers, it's not enough for us to grieve with them, although we certainly do. It's our responsibility, first, to understand what might be causing these horrific events, as well as the many other tragic deaths that are the result of gun violence that take place in our country every year. And then it's our responsibility to find policies that may help prevent tragedies like these in the future. So long as these policies are faithful to the Constitution, and so long as they don't inadvertently harm the very citizens that they're supposed to protect. Mass shootings, of course, attract our attention for a number of reasons, including the fact that they have the ability to inspire great fear. When innocent people get gunned down at random, in public, it makes us wonder, makes us think, will I be next? Will my child be next? Will my spouse, my mother, my father be next? And our media, obsessed with their click and count viewership, shamelessly too often choose to fan those fears rather than to portray the truth about the terrible problem of gun violence in this country. Studies have suggested that this irresponsible media coverage, and I do not hesitate in calling it irresponsible and morally bankrupt, may actually increase the number of mass shootings by encouraging potential killers in their sick desire for attention. The reality of gun violence in America is less sensational than what we see in the media, but no less horrible. 6 in 10 gun deaths are suicides. In 2017, for every victim of a mass shooting, there were 88 victims of gun suicide, and another 52 victims of another form of gun homicide. Mental illness, spiritual emptiness, and a breakdown of the family and community life are at the heart of the underlying causes of much of our gun violence epidemic, including even mass shootings. Mass shooters seek to inflict on others the pain, the fear, and the inner torment that they're already suffering themselves. They too often come from broken homes and distressed neighborhoods. The Joint Economic Committee's Social Capital Project has ranked American counties by the health of family and community life, and has found that half of identified mass shooters came from the bottom quarter of counties. The evil committed by these murderers must be stopped. In order to do that, we have to seek to uproot its causes. Millions of law-abiding citizens use guns to protect themselves and their families and their communities, just as our founding document protects them and their right to do that, and just as our founding fathers intended. The Constitution protects our right to bear arms because if that right were abridged, we'd become more dependent for security on our police and on our military, necessary but limited and finite resources. And it's no criticism of our police and our military to say that this would ultimately make us less secure as a people. Less secure, not more. Some Americans have suffered tragedy precisely when they were prevented from exercising their right to bear arms, as we'll soon hear from the personal story of Dr. Suzanne Hupp, who's here to share that story with us today. Dr. Susanna Hupp met this firsthand and can identify the infringement of her right as being connected to the tragedy that she suffered. And when we do enact gun control laws, we know that criminals are in many instances all too happy and eager and willing and able to ignore them. One study found that 79% of guns recovered from crime scenes were possessed unlawfully. This does not mean that we don't have any ways to keep guns out of the hands of criminals in America, and especially the mentally ill. Our state governments have proposed several worthwhile innovations, including those that make it easier for local law enforcement to act swiftly on reports of suspicious activities that often precede mass shootings. There is room for reform in our federal statutes as well. For example, we could improve local agencies' reporting to our national instant criminal background check system for firearms purchases. Many Americans, including some of our witnesses, have borne in their own lives the unspeakable, unbearable costs of gun violence. It's important for Congress to listen to their voices. I hope that this committee can present to the rest of the country a model of respectful conversation about some very difficult topics so that we can work together to reduce the number of lives tragically and needlessly lost to gun violence.